Welcome to the Worthy of Greatness podcast. I'm your host, Angie Gensler, former corporate marketer turned seven-figure online business owner. Inside each episode of the podcast, you'll discover actionable tips and inspiring advice to help you master your mindset, manifest your goals, and live a truly fulfilled, healthy, and prosperous life. Your path to greatness starts right here. Hey guys, and welcome to the Worthy of Greatness podcast. Today, I have Marie Roker-Jones to share her greatness with you. And Marie is the co-CEO of Esteem, which is a company that powers diversity and inclusion for Fortune 500 companies and women in STEMs. Now, Marie is a social impact startup founder with over 10 years of experience in leading gender and racial diversity strategies. She also has workforce and career development experience creating workforce reentry programs for underrepresented communities. Marie, welcome to Worthy of Greatness. I am so excited to have you on the show today.
Hi, thank you, Angie. Nice to be here.
Marie, give us a little feel for what it is that you do, who you serve, and how you help them achieve greatness.
Great. So what we do is we organize social impact-driven initiatives. And these are hackathons that we call equalithons, hackathons for equality, and ideathons. And we help nonprofit organizations to design and build tech solutions so that they can better serve their communities. And how we do that is it's so powerful because we engage both underrepresented, underestimated tech talent, as well as companies who are really engaged and care about how they are bringing corporate social responsibility to their employees. And we bring those two together to build these solutions for the nonprofit organizations. So what makes it exciting is that these are people that are coming together to support a cause they care about or to really engage in a better understanding how this nonprofit does their work. So there's so many learning opportunities for everyone who's involved.
That's fantastic. Now, so what does a hackathon consist of? Like if, that's kind of a term not many people have heard of, or an equalithon. Yeah. What goes into that and what would it look like?
So because we design ours virtually, what it looks like is traditionally hackathons are more about being competitive and people come together and they build teams and they create tech solutions. Our hackathons are more cooperative, meaning that we have created a trusted space for our community to come together and build teams, but work together to create these solutions. So whereas traditional hackathons are usually in person and it's very much focused on your technical skills and your critical thinking skills, and it's about designing a minimum viable product, which we call an MVP, and winning prizes. So it's really, and a lot of startups and companies have formed based on hackathons, participating in hackathons. But ours are more around, as I mentioned, being cooperative and teams are not competing with each other, but really looking at different ways of creating a solution for a nonprofit organization.
That's fantastic. I love the cooperative element of that instead of trying to compete and someone wins, someone loses, that sort of thing. It's really everyone wins.
Yeah, it is. And it's exciting because we get to see what they've built.
So you mentioned, social impact. Can you talk about, really the importance of that, particularly now with everything that our world is facing, the importance of business owners and nonprofit organizations really focusing on social good and social impact?
Yeah, thank you. So social impact, when we think about it, for some people, it seems to be this heavy word, or it's really loaded with like, what does that mean? And what it really means is, how are you as a company, an employee, or an individual, how are you looking at how you contribute to the world, and how are you helping in making the world, or making just locally, where you live, a more sustainable environment. And that could be anything from you are, organizing, or you're an advocate for better recycling when we think about environment, or you're thinking about how can your company contribute to helping. Maybe there is a small business in your area that is struggling. What can your company do to really help that business move forward, or get back into being successful? So social impact, if we think about it, is what can we contribute, to in Pollyanna terms, how can we contribute to making the world a better place? It really is just about that. And I think some people sometimes are overwhelmed by it because it feels like you have to do so much, but really it's coming up with an idea and surrounding yourself with people who are just as passionate or care about what you are doing as you are, and then finding a way to get it done. And we're doing it through tech.
I love that idea of, how do you make the the world a better place to live? Because I think for so many business owners, it can be easy sometimes to get consumed with your day to day and the bottom line and really what's affecting you and your own business. And to really achieve greatness and to feel a deep sense of purpose, sometimes it does require looking outside ourselves and, focusing on some issues that are bigger than us.
Exactly.
Okay. So Marie, I know another thing that you work on is, and you help organizations with, is diversity and inclusion training. Is that correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So can you talk a little bit about the importance of diversity and inclusion in the workforce, in our businesses, and why that is so important, especially for innovation?
Yes, exactly. I think many companies they struggle with affinity bias. And what that means is that it's easy to hire people that think like you and look like you, went to the same school, or come from the same community. And so then get so caught up in a workplace where everyone is like you, that you forget that the customers you serve, the clients, your vendors, who are these people, and how are you innovating? How are you creating better products? How are you better serving them if you don't have people who have different lived experiences, people who are different in race, gender, even abilities? Like, we have to start looking at, if your company is designing, for example, I'll give an example of, if you're designing a visual product, but are not thinking about those who are visually impaired, how are you now able to better innovate? How are you now able to reach this population? And it's easy to say, well, I don't understand, but you have to bring in people into your company that would understand and can speak from that experience. The other thing I see too is it's with marketing. Like, a lot of times companies are thinking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and they think if we just put one person from each group, we've done our job. But the truth of it is that if there's no one on your team, if there's no one on your board that can really speak to why this is important and how it helps with your business strategy, and why DEI really needs to be part of a company's DNA. It shouldn't be an afterthought. It should be something that is ingrained in your mission, in your vision, and your purpose, because it's really how you create products that are more equitable and more inclusive, and also services. And looking around at, who are your vendors, who are your suppliers? If they're not diverse, how are they providing you with the tools, with the resources that you need in order to be more innovative? So it's less about race and gender, because I think we largely focus on that, but it's more about how do you better serve your customers, the people that love your product, the people that love your service, but oftentimes feel like they're not included in, or you don't care about them, because that's very important. And we're seeing that especially with Gen Z. Gen Z has been one of the most vocal, I guess, generations to really say what they want, and they want to see more equity, and they want to see social impact as well. So think about DEI as your DNA.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important too to point out, I think a lot of businesses might get kind of tied up in this idea of, well, my ideal customer is XYZ, and that's all I need to focus on. But I think you brought up a really good point is maybe your customer fits a certain profile, but maybe that's not your only customer. You also have other people in the world that you're engaging with as a business owner, your vendors, your suppliers. Maybe it's time to reach a new market or broaden your market. Or I love too how you touch on the abilities, because some people might think, well, I'm only trying to reach women. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, maybe you have women with different religious backgrounds, of different races, of different abilities. It's important to remember that the world is not homogenous. Is that the right word?
Exactly. That's the right word. And what you touched on is the intersectionality of it all, right? Because I'm a woman, I'm Black, but I'm not just that. There's other parts to me. And so if you're not thinking about your customers and clients through the lens of intersectionality, then you're missing out, because yes, maybe all your customers are women in a high income bracket, right? But within that group, how many of those women may have a chronic illness, or how many of them may be neurodiverse and on an autism spectrum or ADHD? And so if you're not designing and thinking about that, then you're pretty much ignoring a group of your customers. And that's the easiest way. And if your competitor isn't, where do you think they're going to go? They're going to go, and maybe they love your product, but they're going to go to who's serving them and who sees them, because that's what matters. People want to be seen. They want to know they're valuable to you. And so if you're ignoring them, at some point, they're going to leave and go to someone who really cares about them and building solutions for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any tips for, maybe some of these nonprofits with smaller budgets or small business owners, with very small staff, any tips for them on how to have a more DI or DEI culture, and how to embrace that when they have small staff, they have small budgets?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say start with first doing an assessment and taking inventory of really understanding who you are. What are the values? I think a lot of times large and small companies kind of leap before they take one step, and they think we just have to start doing this DEI without really being mindful of where are we right now? What are we doing well, right? That's the first step. What are we doing well when we think about diversity, equity, inclusion, and where can we do better? And I think if you don't start there, you tend to focus too much on what you're not doing well, which is then when people leap into, let's hire a consultant or let's do this marketing campaign. And you haven't taken the time to assess and see where are the gaps, who are our customers. You can't, for example, if you're a nonprofit and you serve formerly incarcerated women, and you now think, you know what, we need to do a bigger campaign around Black women who were formerly incarcerated, but a large population are women who are Latina. And then you don't have a Spanish speaking kind of program for them. You're forgetting, or you're missing the opportunity to better serve that community. So it's really assessing who we are knowing your values, knowing the purpose. What are we doing well with DEI? Where are the opportunities that we can do better? But who's around us? Who are our benefactors? Who's in our community, and why is this important for us to do, and why now? So asking yourselves all these questions is really the first step before even designing or thinking about we want to do DEI. Is going backwards and getting the buy-in of employees, getting the buy-in of all your employees, and asking them to participate and answer those questions with you so that you now have a more robust, I guess, information. You have more information in order to progress and move forward with your plans.
Nice. That's fantastic advice. Okay. Well, Marie, I would love to take just a small pivot, and I want to talk a little bit about self-care, because I was stalking you a little bit on Instagram and I saw that you had a few posts about self-care. And I think that there's this idea that to achieve greatness and to do great things, create a big business, whatever it may be, even to make an impact and to help make the world a better place, that you have to hustle.
Yes. Oh, God.
Yes. And so I would love to hear your thoughts on that and your thoughts about self-care and the hustle culture.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. I think we have to change that narrative about this idea that you have to hustle or you have to know everything and you have to present yourself always as being successful and look at all the great things that are happening in our, in our business, in my life. And we need to be paying more attention to when are we stopping to reset and reflect and just really take time for ourselves. And the importance of self-care is in this hustle culture, the more you keep pushing or giving out and you're not replenishing for yourself, the less effective and productive you are. And we don't see it because we're so, focused, laser focused on, this is, if I keep doing this, I'm going to be successful. And not realizing that how much you're burning out. And pretty soon you're hit with this fatigue or just overwhelm that just sets you back. And you can be so much more productive if you just take, even if it's a day, an hour, whatever you need to just stop for a minute and say, what do I need in this moment to help me feel good emotionally and mentally and physically? And whether that's, sometimes it's taking a nap, sometimes it's taking a walk, exercising, listening, whatever it is, your self-care practice has to be something that resonates with you and makes you feel good. And whatever it may be, take that time for it. That 1 hour that you take can save you, 10 hours. That one day that you just spend with your family can give you 29 more days of being so productive, because you're also not just feeling heavy with guilt of like, I'm not spending time with my kids, or I'm not spending time with my significant other or spouse, or I'm not, I haven't called my mom in a while. Just all these things, we don't realize that they start to weigh heavy on us too. So when you just take the moment to say, what can I do right now for myself that I'm not going to feel guilty about because I do need this, you're going to see a difference in how you relate to others and how you think about your business and how you think about serving others, because you can't do it. You can't keep emptying your bucket and not refilling it with things that help you to move forward.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that saying, they say you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly.
You have to refill that cup. And it's funny because there's been so many times where I've kind of I have to constantly fight that hustle culture
Yeah.
because I was raised on this, a hard work and this strong work ethic. And so there's times where I feel like, in my head, I'm telling myself, just push through. Like you just need to push through, you'll break through that wall. And I've found that the times where I step aside, I go take a walk, I take a shower, maybe I take a nap, I read, meditate, play with the kids, whatever it may be. Then I come back, and sometimes I don't come back until the next day. But then, holy cow, like something opens up and I can work harder and better, more creatively. It feels like something's opened up, and it's kind of like, oh, yeah, I'm really glad I didn't try to push through that, because if I would have, I probably would have just produced crap.
Exactly. Like, because you're doing it because you know you have to, but you're not doing it with intention. And you have to realize our parents and our grandparents and previous generations, they had different challenges and struggles. And maybe that wasn't something that was enforced because there wasn't time for that. And we can see, if we look back, we can see some of the effects of not practicing self-care and how it impacted our own families. So if we want to, think about future generations and our kids, and really being a role model for that, then we have to do it because it's not benefiting anyone.
I mean, that is such a good point that you make, because I think sometimes, there's some guilt where you think, oh my gosh, my parents and my grandparents instilled these specific values in me. And, I'm going against this. There's some guilt there, but you make such a good point that what they were faced with is so different from what we're faced with.
Yeah.
And, maybe those values they no longer serve, what it is that you need to create. And the type of work that you're doing is such different work. And the challenges that you're faced with every day are so different.
Exactly. And if we think about it, if you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're doing anything where it's social media, virtual, or sometimes families don't even understand what you do.
Yeah.
Explain it in the most simple way. You're like, okay, they still don't get it. And so they don't understand the challenges you have, because it feels like if I'm not constantly producing or creating, I am falling behind. It's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves. But that we feel. And when we look around, we're like, well, this person's not taking time off. They're hustling. Look, and if I just take a minute, I'm going to fall behind because this other person is way ahead. We don't know how long it took them, right? It could have taken them 10 years, but we just see the result. We don't know what they did behind the scenes, how much time they took, and we don't even know what they're going through in their personal life. So we have to just on our own.
Exactly. Yeah. We don't know what their personal relationships are like. Are they all completely destroyed? Are they a total mental case?
Exactly.
They're off social media. They're just a disaster. Who knows?
Yeah.
Or maybe they're paying a fortune for support that we don't realize.
Yeah. And when we see when people are transparent and vulnerable, there's this human connection we have with them, right? I feel like there's this sigh of relief when you read someone's post and they're just being honest, and you say, wow, that felt good to read because I know I'm not alone. And then you feel you have a certain level of respect for that person because they're not just showing you the shiny, this is the outcome, but they're showing you, no, it was a lot. It took a lot to get here. And it helps you. It helps you to be mindful of your own life.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any sort of self-care routine or morning routine that you follow?
I do. So I like to meditate, and I will read an affirmation. I have to admit that maybe by midday I have to read it again because I probably forgot it. But I do my best in the morning to start with one, and not read no read emails, don't go online, nothing until I've done that, until I've taken time and taking a quiet time to ask myself, what do I need to do today? And how do I how will I do it? Because if I don't stop to ask myself that, then if I miss all that and just run into my day, things just start happening. And I realized that I just didn't take that moment. And I need it just to before. And I am trying to, my younger son is going into 5th grade. I've been trying to teach him to do that. But with kids, it's harder. Just say, take 5 minutes, 5 minutes in the morning. Before you do anything, just take 5 minutes and just sit still.
Nice. I love that you're doing that. I've been trying that with my kids too. And it's hard.
Oh yeah, it's hard
to enforce that.
Oh yeah, it's hard.
But I've thought, I'm like, of everything that they're learning at school, if I can teach them to meditate, that might be the best skill that they will learn their entire lives.
Exactly. And you're right. And sometimes we realize, for us, 5 minutes can feel like 5 minutes. For them, it feels more like an hour, right? 5 minutes is like, no, you're only 4 minutes, like 1 minute in. You still have 4 minutes to go. Yeah, kids are hard, but the more eventually, like everything we teach them, it comes out later. We see the results later. We don't see it immediately. So it's hard.
Yeah, very true. Okay, well, I want to talk about one more thing. Sure. And I know that this is something else that you like to talk about. You're kind of an expert in. And that's this idea of imposter syndrome that I know so many business owners face, or a lot of people who are trying to put themselves out there on social media.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I like to say, especially this is for the community we serve, which are women in tech. And I like to say to them that it's a gaslight, right? That the tech industry is gaslighting you to think you are an imposter. And and the truth of it is that the imposter syndrome, first you have to think about, where did we learn it? Like, where in our childhood did this come up before? And why do we think that way? And a lot of times it's because we're not looking at what we have to offer. We're so busy focused on what someone else is offering and how we don't compare to what someone else has. And sometimes even not wanting to speak up or contribute our thoughts because we think that it won't be valued or respected. But the truth of it is, I say that you're not an imposter, you're an outlier. And what that means is that you're thinking in different ways. And we all do, like we all have something to contribute. And why not focus on what you know? Why not focus on, and I think you can relate to this because a lot of the work that you do is around social media branding. Why not focus on your personal brand? What is that? What does that look like? And how would you present it? Like in one of the workshops I've done, I always say, how do you introduce yourself? Why not introduce yourself with your passion project instead of the title of the job you have? Because when you speak about a passion project, you're always going to speak from a place of having this expertise and joy, right? Because it's something you're working on and it's something you really know well. So why not focus on those things instead of what you don't know? And that's what sends us down this spiral of imposter syndrome, is that all this focus on what I don't know instead of what I do know. And how do you present yourself? How do you elevate your visibility, whether it's at work, whether it's as an entrepreneur? How do you do that? I mean, you can create a niche within a niche, right? So thinking about that, thinking about what do I do well? And how can I present that in a way where I feel comfortable and where I feel confident in what I'm saying? And I find that it's usually when you have something that you do that is outside of your work, that is when that really flourishes and shows through. So focus on those things, because that imposter syndrome can knock you out so well. And honestly, I've had it too. I'm saying this, and there'll be moments where I have to catch myself and say, wait a minute, but that's not you. And you haven't even done any of that stuff. That's not even your area of expertise. So why are you worried about it? And even if it's around diversity, equity, and inclusion, somebody may be like killing it doing like gender equity stuff. But if that's not my strength, why am I comparing myself to that? Why don't I focus on where my strengths are and what I can present and what I can speak to confidently? And we you can't say that, oh, there's nothing. There is always something you can speak about. And if you need help, talk to a kid. They will talk. Look at how children talk about the things they know. They will talk to you for hours. Ask one question, you will get an hour-long answer on one thing because they really understand. And so we have to think about, at what point do we stop doing that? At what point do we stop being this child that really can speak to what you love and what you do well?
That's fantastic advice. And you said something so profound. I had to write it down. You said, you're not an imposter, you're an outlier.
Yeah.
And that is such a phenomenal way to reframe it. And it's true. It's not like you're just kind of telling yourself this. It's 100% true. And instead of seeing yourself as this imposter, you're just seeing yourself as this outlier, someone who's making change, who's taking it a different route. And I love that. That's empowering.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And if we can teach that to ourselves and our kids, right? Just how much, think about what we can change in our own thought process. If we start thinking, yeah, you know what? I do this differently and I do it well. Like the stuff you do, Angie, you're definitely an outlier. Like you're looking at social media through a different way of doing it and bringing content into the world that speaks to your truth and speaks to what you care about when you're posting. So that is important to recognize.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, Marie, it has been so wonderful talking to you. Do you have a final piece of advice or any action steps that you want to leave listeners with today?
I would say one action step that I guess combines the imposter syndrome, the social impact, and the self-care is to really be intentional. And what that means is really be thinking about what you want to put out there, not what you think others want you to say, but what is it that you want to put out there into the world? And how do you want to create impact and stop doubting yourself? And that's by living your truth and presenting that. And that's not always easy because we always feel we have to show ourselves up in a way that's, as an expert, but be intentional with what you're saying and doing. And it's okay to not get it right. It really is. It's okay to not get it right because we're all still learning.
Yeah, I love that. That's, a fantastic action step, good advice, because, that's definitely something everyone struggles with, myself included. I sometimes I find myself wanting to put something out there and I question, and I stop and I think, oh gosh, but is this going to sit well with everyone? And it's like, okay, but stop. Is it my truth?
Yes. Good for you. Yes. We all need to do that. We're human, right? We all go through that.
Yeah. Well, Marie, can you share, how listeners can connect with you? And then I also would love to give you a chance to talk about your hackathons and equalathons. So if someone has an organization that would be a good fit, how would they get in touch with you and work with you?
Sure. You can get in touch with me by email, Marie@Esteem, and that's ESSTEEM.com. And my co-founder is French, so that was the French way of spelling esteem. And I'm on LinkedIn, Marie Roker-Jones, Twitter, Marie Rock, R-O-K Jones, and Instagram, Marie Roker-Jones. And if you are a nonprofit organization or a company who's thinking about your corporate social responsibility programs for the upcoming year, reach out so that we can help you really think about what you want to create. And if you're a nonprofit, what is your greatest need right now that tech can help you solve. And let's look at how to bring more impact into our communities, just one hackathon at a time.
Well, Marie, thank you so much. It's been wonderful talking to you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share your greatness with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. Thank you, Angie.
Thank you so much for listening to the Worthy of Greatness podcast at angiegensler.com. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and make sure that you subscribe to the podcast so that you get access to all future episodes. Now, I always like to leave my listeners with an action step because your path to greatness is paved with small steps of action. So I want you to take action right now and head over to angiegensler.com/podcast, where you can download your free copy of my 3 Days of Greatness workbook. Now, this workbook is designed to help you supercharge your path to greatness and create a business and life you love. Plus, it's totally free, so head over to angiegensler.com/podcast to download your copy. I hope you'll join me in the next episode, and until then, remember, you are worthy of greatness.